Section 6.4, Traits, Genes, and Alleles. For this video, we're going to be putting your notes on this notebook paper. Draw where necessary, and then all the examples that I'm showing, write those down with any explanation you may need to help you out with your studying. A little bit of vocab for us to go over. First thing would be a gene. Okay, a gene is a specific region of DNA that codes for a particular protein or a trait that the organism would express. The locus would be the gene-specific location on a chromosome or its address. Okay, so if this is homologous chromosome, this and this are homologous chromosomes. So this trait, whatever this trait is right here, and this one would be the same trait. Say if it coded for height, okay, it would code for height on the left chromosome. It would also code for height on the right chromosome. Okay, same thing with the two genes down here. They would code for the same trait. Okay, so the location of that gene would be in the same spot relatively on the homologous chromosomes, and that would be the location or the locus of those genes. An allele is any of the alternative forms of a gene. So in this example, we're looking at these homologous chromosomes, and on this top one, this allele, this gene, is going to code for purple flowers. In the same location on the homologous chromosome, this gene would code for white flowers. So they're still coding for the same trait, flower color. This top one is just coding for purple, and this bottom one is coding for white. A dominant allele is an allele that is expressed always when two different alleles are present in an organism's genotype. The genotype is the genetic makeup of the organism. A dominant allele is expressed by a capital letter. A recessive allele is an allele that is not expressed unless two copies of this recessive allele are present in an organism's genotype. Again, genotype is the genetic makeup of the organism. Recessive alleles are shown by lowercase letters, and it would be the same letter as the dominant trait. For example, over here we have brown fur being dominant to gray fur in these kitties. So this one, that would be homozygous dominant, meaning they're the same allele, and they're both dominant, so uppercase P, this would give you a brown cat. This one, that is called heterozygous, because it has one dominant and one recessive allele, would also code for brown because it's going to take on the brown coat color from the dominant allele. In this third example, this lowercase b, that would have the recessive trait for fur color, and this one is gray. So homozygous dominant, which we're going to express like this, heterozygous, and homozygous recessive. These are ways to talk about the genotype of an organism. Same thing with these guys. We have brown flying piggies for both the homozygous dominant, because it'll take on the dominant trait, and the heterozygous, because of this dominant allele, it'll show the dominant trait, and then the homozygous recessive, both lowercase, both recessive alleles will take on a different color for that guy. The determining factor in whether an allele is either dominant or not depends on whether or not a protein is made or not made. So uppercase P codes for the pigment protein in the flower to be made. So pigment would be the coloring in the flower to be made. lowercase p doesn't code for a pigment protein to be made. So P would be dominant, and there would be a flower color being expressed. If it was recessive, it would be white, no flower color. There are a lot of different factors that contribute to one allele being dominant over another, and they're not related to at all, one being better than the other, one being more common, darker colors, bigger, etc. None of these things are related to dominance or recessiveness. It's just how the proteins are expressed or not expressed. A homozygous genotype characteristic trait would be of having two of the same alleles. Homo means same, zygous means the chromosomes you're inheriting. So these guys would be homozygous alleles. One came from the mom, one came from the dad, and both of these alleles right here carry the gene for wrinkled pea pods. Okay, these heterozygotes, and again, one coming from mom, one coming from dad. This one, purple one, carries the gene for wrinkled seeds, and this one carries for round. So homozygous, they're the same, wrinkled. Heterozygous, you have one of each or two different alleles, one wrinkled, one round. Same with this flower color. We have uppercase A, we get purple flowers. Lowercase a, we get white flowers or no color. And this heterozygous, big A, little a, we get the dominant trait, which would be purple flower colors. A genome is all of an organism's genetic material. So literally everything that would be on all the chromosomes in a cell would be the genome. There was this project called the Human Genome Project, which was set out to map all the human chromosomes and tell what genes did what on each chromosome. And this would be a map of this Human Genome Project. No, you don't have to memorize this. That would be a lot of information, but just recognize that scientists have been able to sequence the DNA on each chromosome and figure out where the locations of different alleles are for the entire human genome. So we have two different things we need to talk about here: the genotype of an organism and the phenotype of an organism. So the genotype, it says collection of all of an organism's genetic information it codes for the traits, or literally the alleles that these things inherited from their parents. Genotype, it's just easiest to remember, is the types of genes that organism has. Okay, the phenotype would be a collection of all an organism's physical characteristics, or the results of the alleles they inherited from their parents. So phenotype is the type of physical expression of the alleles. For example, we have flower color, these purple and white flowers. This one is homozygous dominant, right? Homozygous dominant. And so it's going to express the dominant phenotype, which would be purple flowers. These two are both heterozygous, meaning they have one dominant allele and one recessive allele for flower color. Since purple is dominant to white, and each of these heterozygotes express one dominant allele, they will also be purple. The phenotype for both of these heterozygotes would be purple. This last one, this lowercase, or homozygous recessive, would give white flowers. Okay, so heterozygous again is going to be expressed as HE. So we have homozygous dominant. Okay, both dominant alleles giving the dominant phenotype of purple flowers. We have heterozygous, one dominant, one recessive. Again, one dominant recessive. Again, giving the dominant phenotype, purple flower colors, and homozygous recessive giving the recessive phenotype of white flowers. In humans, they're showing this just for a brief example, but brown eyes being dominant to blue eyes. Human physical characteristics are inherited a little bit differently than something as simple as this, but for this purpose, brown eyes are dominant to blue. So genotype for a brown-eyed person would be heterozygous or homozygous dominant. Genotype for blue eyes would be recessive or homozygous recessive to get the recessive trait of blue eyes expressed. There are two genotypes that can produce a dominant phenotype. Smooth pod shape is dominant in pea plants. So smooth over constricted. So the homozygous dominant, capital S, would give smooth pods like this. And so would the heterozygous, capital S, lowercase s, would also give us smooth pods. Only one genotype can produce the recessive phenotype. Constricted pods are lowercase s, so the only way to get constricted pods like these guys is to be homozygous recessive or little s to produce these guys, the constricted pods. Okay, so we're going to do a couple of examples of how to determine genotypes and from those genotypes determine the phenotype of an organism. Okay, so this first one, we're going to say that round is dominant to wrinkled. So round will be given by an uppercase R, wrinkled by a lowercase r. Since this is a dominant trait, you use that letter. This is recessive, you use the same letter but in a lower case. So if a plant has a genotype of homozygous dominant, will their phenotype be round or wrinkled? Since it's homozygous dominant, the dominant trait is going to be expressed, and these guys would be round. If a plant has a genotype that is heterozygous, capital R, little r, will their phenotype be round or wrinkled? Well, again, since it has this dominant allele, the dominant allele is going to be expressed, and this offspring would be round. If a plant has a genotype of little r, or homozygous recessive, they're both recessive, which means the recessive phenotype, wrinkled, would be expressed. For this one, it says, these are in pea plants, tall is dominant to short. Okay, tall will be given by an uppercase T and short by a lowercase t. If a plant has a tall phenotype, meaning it's a tall plant, what are the two possible genotypes? I'm asking, what are the two possible allele combinations that could give you tall flowers? Well, first would be homozygous dominant, so this could be capital T, that would give a tall plant. But so would heterozygous, which would be big T, little t, because this tall allele would be expressed and you get a tall plant. If a plant has a short phenotype, the only way to get this short, or in this case recessive phenotype, would be if it is homozygous recessive, so little t. Tall plants would have two genotypes to produce the tall plant, and short plants would have one genotype to produce the short phenotype, which would be little t. Most traits are not either or traits. Pea plants have a very simple pattern of inheritance, which is why Mendel chose them. But these traits, these phenotypes or physical expressions of alleles can be affected by other factors such as nutrition or sunlight or availability of water or weather. All these things can contribute to how genes are expressed, and as a result of how the genes are expressed, what the phenotype of that organism would be. All right, so get a new sheet of notebook paper, put your name in the upper right-hand corner and period. In the left margin, number down the paper 1 through 25 with a little bit of space, so just 1 through 25. And then we're going to be filling in the answers to each question. You're going to scan the notes and the answer to these questions and submit it to Blackboard. Okay, so that is your homework. So, new sheet of notebook paper, 1 through 25 in left-hand margin, name in the top right with your period, and here we go. So this first set of examples are all going to be using these characteristics. Okay, so these are the physical characteristic and what the allele is for dominant and what the allele is for recessive, and we're going to figure out how these things go. So it says use the information for SpongeBob's traits to write whether this is a homozygous recessive, homozygous dominant, or heterozygous genotype, then indicate the phenotype, the physical appearance for each item. So the first one, it says little r. This is both lowercase letters, so it's going to be homozygous recessive. And we look at what R is. R is the eye shape, so little r. We would get an oval eye shape. Okay, that's the example. Number 1, big L, big L. So big L, capital L, capital L. This is going to be homozygous dominant. Okay, that's writing it out. This is much easier, right? Homozygous dominant. So we're going to use these acronyms. Okay, L deals with the nose style. So capital, the dominant trait, is long. So this would have a long nose. SpongeBob is homozygous dominant for nose style, and he has a long nose. Next guy. What is this guy? Okay, this is 1 uppercase and 1 lowercase, so that would be heterozygous. So R deals with the eye shape. We have 1 dominant and 1 recessive, so it's going to take on the recessive. So this would be round eye shape. Next, we have lowercase y. So this is going to be homozygous recessive, or HOR. Y deals with the body color. Uppercase Y is yellow, lowercase y is blue. So since this is homozygous recessive, this SpongeBob is going to have a blue body. Okay, so pause the video and you're going to do 4 through 8 on your own, filling that sheet in, that notebook paper in, questions 4 through 8, do on your own. Again, you can use the acronyms. For homozygous dominant is HOD, heterozygous is HE, and homozygous recessive is HOR. You can use that for that. Get the physical characteristic correct, and when you're done, restart the video. Okay, so for this one, you're given a description. So it's telling you what the physical trait is, and you need to determine the genotype from the phenotype. So the physical manifestation of the trait, and you're going to figure out what the genotype could be. For example, yellow body, where yellow is dominant to blue. So yellow could either be homozygous dominant or heterozygous. Both of those would give a yellow body. 9, stubby nose. So we look at nose style. If it's stubby is the recessive trait. So in order for it to be stubby, The only way the genotype can give stubby nose is if it's little l, little l. Okay? Round pants. Round pants is recessive to square pants, right? So round pants would be given by lowercase s. If it has round pants, it's showing the recessive trait, so it would have to be lowercase s, lowercase s. Okay, so you're going to continue. You're going to do 11 through 15 on your own. Same idea. Get the genotype or genotypes for the specific trait, and when you're done, restart the video and continue. In this last couple of examples, it says determine the genotypes for each using the information at the top of the page. So here again, it's telling you what type of genotype it is. So for example, it says it's heterozygous. Well, heterozygous means you're going to have one dominant and one recessive allele. So if it's for round eyes, we go to eye shape, which is R. So if it's heterozygous, we will have capital R, little r, as its genotype. Number 17, homozygous long nose. Remember, homozygous means both alleles are the same. We look under nose style. Long is capital L. So for this one, it's going to be capital L, capital L. Purebred means they're homozygous. Okay, purebred means they're the same. Okay, so purebred square pants would be like saying homozygous square pants being dominant, so uppercase S. We would have big S and big S. Okay, again, so 19 through 25, you're going to do those on your own. Make sure you're very aware of what's heterozygous, dominant, or heterozygous or homozygous. Know that if it's heterozygous, you're going to have one dominant, one recessive allele. If it's homozygous, you'll have both of the same alleles. And if it says purebred, that means homozygous. Okay, good luck. Make sure to scan all the notes as well as the notebook paper with questions 1 through 25 and submit it to Blackboard before the due date at 7:30 in the morning.